Hey everyone, I'm Northern Explorer. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be installing a set of airbags on my 2017 Ford F250. This will be the third vehicle that I've installed airbags on. My other two vehicles were a 2005 Chevy Colorado and a 2015 Toyota Tacoma. Both of those vehicles were maxed out when it came to payload. The airbags were needed to help prevent squat and to add stability. You may be wondering why I'm adding airbags to an F250 that has a payload capacity of 3,448 pounds to carry a camper that weighs in at around 1,600 pounds. The reason: this truck has a little bit of a driver's side lean. This is probably a result of the gas tank being located on the driver's side. This problem is made worse when the camper is installed because the two batteries, propane tank, oak countertop, and refrigerator are all located on the driver's side. The problem is so bad that no matter how well I center my camper during installation, and no matter how tightly I secure the tie downs, over the course of just a couple of weeks, the camper will shift out of center to the driver's side, which then makes the lean even more pronounced. Unlike the different types of helper springs on the market, airbags should help because the lift capacity of each bag can be adjusted individually in order to level the vehicle both front to back and side to side. The airbags that I'm going with are the Airlift LoadLifter 5000 Ultimate Plus. These airbags have a load limit of 5,000 pounds, internal bump stops, stainless steel components, and offer a no-drill installation. This kit weighs in at 37 pounds. Let's get started with the installation. After loosening the lug nuts, I jacked the truck up high enough to be able to get jack stands under the frame. With the weight of the truck resting on the jack stands, I can now safely remove the tires. The factory bump stops are then removed in order to make room for the airbags. The clip-in studs must also be removed. Universal nuts are then installed into the frame rail. Be careful not to lose the nuts within the frame. 4 of the shorter carriage bolts need to be inserted into the upper frame bracket. The upper frame bracket is then installed using 2 button head cap screws that are threaded into the universal nuts. Be certain that the orientation of this bracket is correct. Place a roll plate on top of the air spring with the rounded edge facing down. Then install one of the 90-degree swivel fittings. The upper air spring bracket is now attached using the proper hardware. This bracket must also be oriented properly. Turn the assembly over and place the second roll plate on top of the airbag with the rounded edge facing down. The long carriage bolts are now inserted into the lower bracket. The lower bracket is then placed onto the air spring and attached with flat head cap screws. The lower bracket cup is now attached to the lower bracket. The airbag assembly is ready for installation. Lowering the axle will significantly help with this step. A U-bolt is used to hold the lower bracket tight against the factory bump stop strike plate. The lower clamp bar is now installed onto the long carriage bolts. The U-bolts can now be tightened the rest of the way. The next step is to go back and finish tightening the hardware that holds the lower bracket cup in place. The previously installed shorter carriage bolts are now used to attach the upper air spring bracket to the upper frame bracket. Zip ties are used to secure the ABS and steel brake lines so they don't chafe on the long carriage bolts. The longer zip ties that you see here did not come with the kit. At this point, the air lines are ready to be installed. Removing the spare tire will make this much easier. Be careful not to over-tighten the connections. I decided to position the Schrader valves where the upper license plate screws would normally be located. These screw holes need to be drilled out in order to fit the valves. The steel backing plate is then removed in order to trim the depth of the holes. After replacing the backing plate, the Schrader valves can then be installed. The air lines are secured with zip ties in a way that they are not in contact with moving parts. Next thing I'm doing is installing the heat shield. This goes in place on the exhaust where it runs closest to the airbag. The heat shield must be bent in a way to allow airflow between it and the exhaust pipe. And with the magic of YouTube editing, both sides are done. So after driving around town and finding what I think is the flattest parking lot in town, I took some measurements. So with the camper installed and before adding any pressure to the airbags, front driver's side 22 inches, front passenger side 22 3/4 inches, back driver's side 22 1/2 inches, back passenger side 23 1/4 inches. So both front and back, it's sitting lower by 3/4 of an inch on the driver's side. So I'm going to add some pressure to the airbags and see if we can level that out somewhat. So I got 20 pounds of pressure in the passenger side, and I'll probably end up having to put, I'm going to guess 30 or 40 in the driver's side, but we'll just have to find out. So after a little bit of experimentation, I ended up putting 20 psi in the passenger side and 60 psi in the driver's side. And the end results, the front driver's side 22 1/8, front passenger side 22 1/2, back driver's side 24, and back passenger side also 24. I may continue to experiment with the pressure in order to soften the ride and reduce some of the rake, but for now I'm more than happy with the results. So I did need to go back and track down an air leak. Everything seems to be airtight for now. I'm going to cut 3/4 of an inch off of the long carriage bolts. They hang down a little farther than what I would like. I ended up finding an error in the 2017 F250 owner's manual. For the F250, the owner's manual shows the jack location in between the leaf spring U-bolts. But if you look at my setup, the U-bolts are facing down, which means I have a clamp bar in this spot. So what I have according to the owner's manual is the F450, F550 setup. This means that the jack point is actually in this location, which is occupied by the airbag hardware. I will now need to find some other location as a jack point. As far as the ride quality, it's definitely a firmer ride with less sway. I do believe the airbags limit articulation to some degree. On my Tacoma, I mounted a set of Daystar airbag cradles. These helped a lot with getting articulation back. This vehicle, on the other hand, probably isn't going to be doing any hardcore rock crawling, so at this point I don't have any plans to install the cradles. If you think you're interested in a set of these airbags, check out my link in the description. Also check out my Amazon store for the rest of the products in this build. That's it for this one. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.